everyone, I'm Tasin. Today I'm going to talk about how you can reduce the cost of running an experimentation program. So let me start with a very quick introduction. I have been working in the UX and CR industry over the last 15 years or so. Worked across different agencies, worked with major global brands, helping them to increase their revenue by multi-million dollars. By doing research, strategy, A/B testing, conversion and optimization, experimentation, you name it. And at the moment, I am working at Ecologics as the Chief Operating Officer. We have got over 70 engineers, a mixture of developers and QA engineers, and supporting our clients with their purely their A/B testing, development, and QA. So before we get into how to reduce the cost of an experimentation program, let's just take a quick look at where the cost actually adds up for an experimentation program. I divided it into two sides. So the first one is the cost of technology, and all kind of platform cost and other associated costs are part of this technology cost. And then, of course, the cost of brains or cost of people. Now, within the technology, you have got testing platforms, analytics platforms, heat mapping tools, usability testing platforms, and then within the people cost, in typical scenario, you need a CRO consultant. And many people say the different names, optimization managers or UX. Sometimes UX consultants, they also do conversion optimization. Then you've got the data analyst also become part of that team. You've got UI designer to design the variations potentially. Test developer, you need someone to actually develop the test. And of course, QA the test, making sure that the tests are bug-free before it goes live. Now, when you consider both of them has got a certain amount of cost associated with it, which actually adds up. And once you get into the details of it, you can see like how it can crop up. Just to give you an example, some companies, I think based on research done by e-consultancy a few years back, based on the respondents, they saw that around 44% companies or respondents saying that they were spending almost $10,000 per year on just alone on the testing platform, and around 19% of the respondents were spending over 50 grand a year for the testing platform. And then when you look at the average team cost or people, so when you're hiring a CRO consultant, when you're hiring a UI designer, a test developer, and a QA engineer for running your experimentation program on a generic term based on the US payroll, if you consider the average salary for those team members, it can crop up and it can go $300,000 annually to it could be like $500,000. Now, when you add them together, I mean, we're talking about over 300 grand per year on running the experimentation. Now, if your company can justify spending that amount of money for doing the conversion and optimization or experimentation, that's amazing. That's pretty great. You are in a really good position. You know, your annual income overall revenue, if you can justify that, that's amazing. But not everyone can justify over 300 grand on experimentation. And I strongly believe that experimentation should not be something only for a handful of people. It should be for everyone, all businesses who wants to try out different things, who wants to continuously improve their website, their metrics, their goals, and continuously improve their customer experience. Now, when we look at this amount and the data, let's say a company is making $100 million per year, and if they're making a 3% overall annual incremental revenue increase in their revenue, which is directly attributed from their experimentation program, they can justify spending 300 grand because that amount equates to $3 million. However, there are many companies around the globe who are possibly making $10 million per year, or sometimes even less than that. And with 3% overall annual increase, it's a gain of 300K. So it's not very easy conversation to have with the key stakeholders or owners of this business to say like, yeah, we have to spend 300K. How much we're going to gain? 300K. It probably wouldn't work. So what does that mean for those companies? Or what can they do? Well, should they completely stop doing experimentation, stop CRO? Or should they find ways to reduce cost? Now, this is where the cost, reducing the cost of experimentation program comes into play. Now, let's have a quick look at the cost of experimentation again. So you've got the technology cost, where these are allowing you to execute your tests, execute your ideas to find out whether the idea works or not for your users, for your metrics. Also, in order to do the research, to understand the existing customer behavior, to come up with those ideas, what can you do to actually reduce the cost of those technology? Well, first things first, you need to assess the platforms that you're currently using, how much you're paying for that platform. Now, what are the must-haves from those platforms? What are you trying to achieve? I mean, if it is like one or two tests, if you don't have enough traffic that are coming to the website, you probably don't need a really expensive, or don't need to spend a huge amount of money on the platform, on the testing platform, to run your experimentation program. So the way you can think of it, or ask yourself this question is, what are the must-haves from those platforms? Like what do you really need to get out of those platforms? What are the features that are good to have? Like, okay, you're starting, but now you're in a good position, but now you want to have some specific targeting conditions. And then look at some of the features. Are they just bells and whistles for you, and they're probably never going to be used by yourself? Then it's time to look at what other options available. You can do a market research. I mean, you don't need to look too far. There are very good testing platforms that you can get in a really significantly cheaper amount, but it will do just as good as some of the other platforms. Now, of course, you need to look at its features, look at its limitations, look at the clients who are currently using those platforms as well, the businesses, and make sure that you understand, based on your target and your experimentation program, whether those platform is right for you. So now let's take a look at how we can potentially reduce the cost for the team, for the people who are directly involved on the experimentation program. Now, first of all, you need to understand what key skill sets you need the most. What do you already have within your current team? Because of course, like running a website, running a business, running an online presence, you need to have some key people already working on your team. Now, how much of that skill set you can take for your experimentation program? Another thing is you also need to understand how much time is going to be spent for each individual people, each individual person within that team to run each and every tests. Based on that, you can then make a decision whether you need someone full-time, whether you need someone part-time, whether you can outsource it to an agency, and where you can get the most outcome. Now, we have done some research based on the data of 450 tests across different websites, and we looked at the hours distribution and how much time is spent by different roles. And what we have seen based on the actual data is around 6% and 12%, 6% time is being spent by the designers for doing the variation designs, optimization managers or CRM consultants spending 12%. That's to actually do the test plan, test briefing, doing the ideas, and also doing the result analysis, because of course you need to understand the result. And then QA is spending around 26% of the time. This is for each individual test on average. And then solutions engineers or developers spending 56% of the overall time per test on average. There's a quick caveat that I have to mention here. Now, this excludes the time spent on the usability testing, I would presume, or even the CRO audit. And this is where the time of the optimization manager comes into play. So that is excluding that. And again, once you do a round of feasibility testing or a CRO audit, you can potentially get the ideas or running the test ideas for next 3 months or next 6 months. So based on that data, you can start thinking about putting in, and this is what I call a hybrid model for the companies, for the companies to go for in order to reduce the cost of their experimentation program. And this is where you can speak to some external CRO consultants who are working on a freelance basis, who can support you a day per week, a couple of days a month. And to be honest, like even within this experimentation group, I think I've seen quite a few really good CRO consultants. And speak to them, find out what they can do for your business, and see how that can reduce the cost. The second one is use your in-house designer. And pretty much most of the businesses, they have got their UI designer who are already involved on creating the campaign designs, creating or changing the websites. See how much of their time you can allocate for your CRO program or experimentation program. And then on another note, I wanted to put in like check and see if you can utilize your internal dev team. But there has been so many times I heard this conversation when speaking to the client, like, yes, they tried to use their internal dev team, but the internal dev team always provide higher priority to their internal dev work rather than experimentation work. And as a result, the test velocity becomes really stalled. And this is where we kind of come in and filling in the gap at the moment by providing support to the clients. It's a good idea. Of course, you need to understand and see whether this works for you. Outsourcing A/B testing developers, and also very, very important, the QA engineers. A lot of the times I've spoken to many agencies and clients, they don't do or they don't have a separate QA engineer. But again, you should also consider outsourcing a QA engineer as well. So what does that look like when you put it into perspective? I mean, of course, we discussed about the testing platform, and based on your requirements, you can reduce it down by half on the spend on those testing platforms. And then also with that kind of hybrid model where you are getting the CRO consultants, external CRO consultants supporting you with a day a week or 2 days per month based on, of course, your test velocity and your requirement. And also outsourcing, full-time engineer, the way we cost it is slightly different, and potentially it can reduce your overall cost for the whole experimentation program by over 200K. Now, again, going back to our previous slide where we discussed about the businesses who are potentially not making over $10 million per year, for them, this becomes something to continue, an experimentation program that is not extremely expensive, but at the same time they can continue with their experimentation and continue to improve their customer experience and grow their businesses in that way. Now, of course, the idea is you want to become from $10 million to $100 million in one day. And in order to do that, you have to do, and keep in mind, doing the experimentation and continuous improvement of the customer experience and grow the business. So that's it from me for today. If you've got any questions, you can email me, tasin@ecologics.com. You can connect me with LinkedIn. If you search with my name, it should be there. And yeah, hopefully this was useful. And by all means, any questions, give me a shout, and I'll answer to all of your questions. Thank you very much. Have a great day.